This is your News Source Evening Bulletin for today, Tuesday, the 5th day of February in the year 2019. Here's what we're tracking tonight. Supporters of the opposition People's Progressive Party protested on High Street today, pressing for elections within the next month. The protesters gathered at the Red House, armed themselves with placards, then made their way as close as they could to the Elections Commission headquarters. A police cordon had already been set up, and that prevented the protests from getting close to the Elections Commission. Opposition leader and PPP General Secretary Barra Jagdeo led the protests and said it was just the beginning of his party's increasing the pressure on the Elections Commission and the government to ensure elections are held in the month of March.
So we believe they're coming under heavy pressure from the government in GCOM to delay the elections. No, the government knows that it's going to lose in the courts, and therefore it wants to use GCOM as a stumbling block for early elections and respecting the Constitution.
GCOM's reported timeline sees elections taking place not before the month of July. The opposition leader said he's not pleased with that. He explained that his party wants the Elections Commission to understand that the proposed timelines are not tenable.
We want to ensure that GCOM understands that none of those timelines are tenable at this point in time, that they have, as a constitutional body, to respect our Constitution.
According to the former president, the Elections Commission needs to be working in an accelerated manner to meet the 3-month deadline for the hosting of elections after a successful no-confidence vote. The Constitution calls for elections to be held within 3 months or at a time agreed to by 2/3 of the National Assembly. Some of the commissioners on the Elections Commission have reportedly indicated that there is a need for the cleansing of the voters list. Mr. Jagdeo said he believes those commissioners are the ones who may be under pressure by the government to delay elections. Rather than have house-to-house registration and the prolonged claims and objections period, the opposition leader said he believes an internal process could be used to rid the list of those persons who might have died.
I spoke about how we can use an internal process consistent with the law in GCOM, not we, but GCOM, to remove dead names from the list. I heard this argument about young people being disenfranchised. But you know, the continuous registration starts with getting you registered from the time you're 14 years old. So they can extract those names that would have attained the age of 18 by election day to put them on the list.
The protest and picketing exercise lasted for just over an hour and also had the support of several former officials of the last PPP civic government. It ended right back at the Red House, where Jagdeo thanked his supporters and said the protest represents the ratcheting up of pressure against the government.
This is just the beginning. This was just to send a small signal to what is there to come in the future. What is there to come in the future? If this government thinks that it's business as usual, clearly it is not. It is not, and we're not going to allow them to disrespect our Constitution and sit down idly by. They will see us ratchet up the action.
Meanwhile, the Guyana Elections Commission held another meeting today, but no clear timeline has emerged for the hosting of national elections. Another meeting is scheduled to look at the work plans being put forward by the GCOM Secretariat. Commissioner Vincent Alexander this afternoon said GCOM knows it is impossible for elections to be held within 90 days.
About 2 weeks ago, it was a consensus in the Commission that March 19th is impossible. It was a consensus in the Commission. Of course, people shifted their positions probably after getting directives. But reasonable minds at work about 2 weeks ago said 19th is not possible. And one of the things about March 19th, if it were to be possible, is absolutely no addition to the list in terms of people who are registered, who have now become 18, being added. All of that would be excluded. Was going to be excluded if one were to consider a March 19th arrangement. And that cannot be. The Constitution provides for people who are of age to be able to vote, and for GCOM to present possibility for people to exercise their right. So you can have somebody registered, you have an election, and you ignore the fact that they're registered in the preparation of the list.
The opposition is pushing for elections to be held as early as March. The GCOM timelines are looking at the July date at the earliest. More news in a moment.
Roam like you're home, because prepaid means more with GTT. Travel to any GTT roam zone in the US, Canada, Caribbean, Latin America, or South America, and pay the same great rates to use your data from foreign as you do when you're home. With GTT, prepaid means more, so roam like you're home with GTT, Guyana's preferred roaming network.
As a luxury mechanic, I'm often asked, what gas should I use in my expensive vehicle? In other countries, you have regular and mid-grade gasoline known as 87 to 89 and premium gasoline known as octane 93 to 95. For affordable, high-quality fuel, performance and high mileage, visit Guy Oil today. Choose Guy Oil Super 95. Guy Oil, we are everywhere.
Welcome back. Let's tell you now that Attorney General Basil Williams has officially filed the government's appeal in the no-confidence cases. In his pleadings to the court, the Attorney General said the Chief Justice Roxanne George Wiltshire erred and misdirected herself in law when she ruled that a motion of no confidence upon a division of 33 or 32 members of the National Assembly was validly passed as the requisite majority of all the elected members of the National Assembly, pursuant to Article 106(6) of the Constitution of Guyana. He's also pointing out that the Chief Justice also erred and misdirected herself in law when she ruled that the Speaker's ruling that a motion of no confidence was properly carried was correct. The government's position is that the Chief Justice erred in law and her decision was unreasonable and cannot be supported having regard to the evidence. The government wants the Court of Appeal to set aside the decision of the Chief Justice with regard to the vote being properly carried by a majority. In addition to that, the Attorney General also wants the court to rule that the Chief Justice erred and misdirected herself in law when she ruled that the passage of the motion of no confidence requires that the Cabinet shall resign on the date of the motion's passage. He also wants the ruling to be thrown out by the Court of Appeal. The opposition leader, the Speaker of the National Assembly, and Attorney Christopher Ram are listed as those to be affected by the appeal, along with the Attorney General. The government has said that it will take the case all the way to the Caribbean Court of Justice if there is a need for that. Chief Justice Roxanne George Wiltshire handed down her rulings in the no-confidence matters last week after reviewing a number of submissions in the three matters taken before her. The matters all relate to the no-confidence motion and the vote against the government. Former government member of parliament Charandas Prasad voted along with the opposition in the motion against his own government. He hurried out of the country the following morning. Well, let's tell you now that all classes at the University of Guyana Turkine campus were cancelled today following several bomb threats against the tertiary institution. The police and the bomb squad were called in as students and lecturers were hurried out of the classrooms and the compound. Speaking to News Source, the university's Vice-Chancellor, Dr. Ivor Griffith, related that the university received the threats just after 1 o'clock this afternoon and acted immediately. He said all threats are taken seriously by the university. Searches were conducted in several buildings, but they all came up empty-handed. Police investigators are making efforts to trace the threats. It is suspected that the same person who has been behind threats against the School of the Nations and a number of other schools is also behind the threats today at the University of Guyana. Some students said the entire ordeal was like something out of a movie, as they explained the quick reaction of the police force and the evacuation of the classrooms and other buildings. The matter is being investigated tonight. Meanwhile, a number of parents of children who attend the private School of the Nations picketed today outside the Public Security Ministry. The disgruntled parents complained that they are not satisfied with the pace of the investigations into the threats against the school and the shooting of the school's director. They want to see the police doing a whole lot more.
The PTA has actually spoken to the Assistant Commissioner. We've asked and pleaded with him to make a statement since Friday night, and we were chastised, told that we have no right to tell them what to do, while we were just suggesting what they need to do to appease to not only the parents of the children of the School of the Nations, but to the general public. To date, no one from the Ministry of Social Protection, no one from the Commissioner of Police has said anything to us And through the Ministry of Education, yes, we had a meeting. It was a meeting just for the School of the Nations to tell us nothing other than they will do whatever they can.
The Guyana Police Force has indicated that it has been questioning a number of persons in connection with the two incidents. The school has increased security at its location following the threats. The threats started just after the expulsion of a student who had threatened to shoot up at the school. The young man later claimed that he was making a joke among his friends. A 61-year-old laborer is behind bars after he was remanded to jail yesterday for the alleged rape of a 13-year-old disabled girl. The accused, Octavius Williams, appeared before the chief magistrate on Monday to face the rape charge. He was not required to enter a plea to the indictable charge. The court was told that the incident occurred last week in the Georgetown area. It is reported that the accused forced his way into the house where the girl lived and forcibly engaged in sexual acts with her. It was a relative of the teenage girl who arrived home and caught the man as he was getting dressed. A report was made and he was immediately arrested. The police prosecutor objected to bail and told the court that the man had a previous charge in connection with a similar case. The magistrate remanded the accused to jail until later this week, when the matter will continue.
Nobody on the post there. Going to do costly. Yes, it is. But I'm not saying anything. He just get a header. Oh no, that's some save, isn't it?
Let's Bet Sports. Take your game to a whole new level. You decide. Your game, your bet type, your bet amount. Guyana Lottery Companies, Let's Bet Sports. Be part of the game.
Get ready to ride it, ride it. Ready to ride it, ride it, ride it, ride it, ride it, ride the wave. Open up the new vibe, drink up the boldness inside. Radical and fresh and wild. Catch the wave now. Ride bold, ride fresh, ride strong. Come on, ride the wave. Taste the action, satisfaction, perfection. Wave, 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 wave.
Ride the new wave of excitement sweeping Guyana. Wave Pale Ale, a premium, full-bodied, strong, and refreshing alcoholic brew, crafted to perfection for a bold, young, radical you. Don't settle for anything less. Catch a Wave Pale Ale and ride it today.
Wave Pale Ale.
Crafted to perfection.
Across the region right now, a major shakeup is coming for struggling regional airline Liat, as its main shareholder governments await a detailed report on the airline's operations. According to the Barbados Today website, the pending changes, which could determine the airline's fate, are expected in a matter of months. Among the changes will be the implementation of a performance index to help determine promotion and pay increases, possibly a new funding model, and amendments to the labor laws in Antigua and Barbuda, where the airline is currently based. Barbados is the majority shareholder in Liat. Antigua and Barbuda, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Dominica are the other shareholders in the airline. In Jamaica, the People's National Party is offering a 500,000 Jamaican dollar reward through the island's Crime Stop program to anyone with information that leads to the arrest of those responsible for the murder of Jamaican Member of Parliament Dr. Linville George Bloomfield. Bloomfield's body was found with multiple stab wounds inside his house on Saturday. PNP General Secretary Julian Robinson called for anyone with information to come forward so as to assist the island's police investigations. Robinson said in addition to the reward, the party will also be having a series of events to honor Bloomfield's service to his community, his constituency, and the island of Jamaica. Finally tonight, international news. 10 people, including a baby, have died in a fire at an 8-story building in southwestern Paris. More than 30 people, including 6 firefighters, were injured. One person is in a serious condition. 50 people were evacuated by ladders from the blaze. Investigators believe the fire, one of the most deadly in the French capital in years, was possibly started deliberately. A woman detained earlier by police is no longer being questioned. Earlier today, French President Emmanuel Macron said the country had woken up to tragedy. He praised the fire services for their courage. And that's your News Source Evening Bulletin for tonight. Gordon Mosley reporting.